Welcome back. In this video, we're going to have a little introduction to Chinese characters. Having some concept of these crazy things that are so foreign to many of us it's helpful to get started. And so I'm going to try to demystify Chinese characters and give you some rules about how to write them and that kind of thing. And hopefully by the end of this video, you will feel a little bit less scared of learning Chinese characters. Okay, so how many are there? Well, let's just say lots, like in the 50,000, 100,000, characters used during history. There are thousands and thousands of characters, but today there are in common, maybe the average university student might know 4,000 to 5,000, but to read well in Chinese, knowing 2,000 to 3,000 is a really good start. And so that takes time, and that won't happen overnight, but that's, it is 2,000 to 3,000 characters to read well. But here's the thing. They look like pictures, they look like they're completely foreign, but they are made up, you need to remember this and kind of get this in your heart. They are made up of recognizable parts. One character, let me just give you an example. See this little character right here? It's hao, it means good. It's made up of two parts. I don't know if you can tell, but this is on the left is one part, on the right is another part. And those two by themselves are also characters. And so if you know those two other characters, when you see them put together, you're like, oh, that's not so hard. Another example right here we have, it's actually two of the same character are put together to make a new character. So basically all these complex characters, the vast majority of them are made up of parts that you will already recognize once you learn the building blocks. So you'll see how it works. Okay, another thing about characters, here's a sentence with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 characters. Each character is a syllable. So it's not a letter, it's not a part of a syllable, each character represents a syllable. 我是他好朋友. 我是他好朋友. So we have 6 syllables in this sentence. 朋友 is a word, it's a meaning unit, but it's 2 syllables and it's 2 characters. This rule is basically 100% true, except for one major exception. There's a little character R that is added to other syllables, so it's actually 2 characters will be 1 syllable. So if you put on, I'm trying to think, there's no example here, but if you say ban, meaning work, then and you add an R to it, it becomes bar. It'll be 2 characters, but pronounced as 1 syllable. But basically, every character is 1 syllable. Okay, so there are another thing you'll notice from my sentence here, there are no spaces between characters or between words. So it's just block, 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 block next to each other. And that's very different from most Romance languages and many other languages in the world. You'll get used to it, but that's a little different. Okay, so in modern Chinese, there is punctuation. In ancient Chinese, there wasn't. In some input systems, like typing systems, the punctuation will actually be the size of a character. In other input systems, it'll kind of be like between them, and it won't be the size of a whole character. Okay, writing direction. So you'll notice in this sentence, it's like English in that it's left to right, and then up to down. So we do a sentence, we do a line here, another line, and so forth. In ancient Chinese, it was up and down first, and then right to left. So you'd go like this, and then this, and this, and this. But in modern Chinese, most books or any kind of writing, you'll see it this way. Definitely in China. And there might be some people, some publishing companies or whatever that still use that old system, but definitely you won't see it in China. Okay, except for like in art and stuff like that. Okay, so there are 2 systems of characters now in modern Chinese. There are simplified characters and there are traditional characters. We're going to be using simplified characters. That's what's used in China, and they aren't completely different. Many of the characters that are in simplified and traditional are exactly the same. But what they did when they created the simplified system is they just took some of the more complex traditional characters, particularly common ones that were also complex in their writing, and simplified them down. And so there are differences between the the systems. For example, I can tell you here, this character, Ren, person, is the same in both systems. But this character here, the right part of this, which means door, in traditional characters, it's more strokes, and it actually looks a little bit more like a door than this one does. But it was simplified down into this little thing right here to make it easier to write and less strokes. Okay, so we're using simplified. All right, the next thing I want to talk about in reference to Chinese characters is this concept of radicals. So radicals are parts of a character that kind of, actually in old dictionaries, they would use the radical, the one part of the character, to look up a more complex character. So you look up a radical, and then you see all the characters that use that radical. So it's a part of a character that sort of anchors that character. It has this radical. So let me give you a couple of examples here. This one right here is ko. It means mouth. And it actually looks a little bit like a mouth. If you imagine this square becoming a circle, it looks like a mouth. And so this character here, which is actually the sound a cat makes, meow, it is the ko is the radical of this character. Same thing here. You have ren, which means person, and then on this character, the radical is right here. Now it's a modified form. This is the form it takes when it's the side of another character. But I mean, I think you can see there's a connection between them. So this is a modified form of this, but that's the radical of this character. Here we have ni, which means woman or girl, female. And then this means mother, and the nu is the radical of that character. Okay, so radicals, learning radicals in the beginning is really, really helpful because you'll learn these basic parts and recognize them in characters, and they will actually give you a clue. Many characters, not all of them, hear me, not all of them, but many characters have this, especially when they're side by side, like there's two parts that are side by side, left and right, not top and bottom necessarily, but left and right. So here, these three characters all have that, left, right, left, right, left, right. When it's like that, many of them have this thing where it's like the left half, the left part, will give you a meaning clue, and the right part will give you a pronunciation clue. So let's see how this works. Here we have ko means mouth, so meow has to do with sound. So the cat makes a sound, meow. And then this part right here, it by itself, it's the pronunciation clue. By itself, I think it's meow, which means sprout, or something like that. So that is a clue to the pronunciation. So this gives you a meaning clue, this gives you a pronunciation clue. Here, same thing. This one is the part of a pronoun that makes it plural, like I becomes we, he becomes they, she becomes they, that kind of thing. So it has to do with people. So this means person, gives you a meaning clue. This by itself is man, which means door, but this character the whole character is pronounced man, which means so we have a meaning and a pronunciation clue. Same thing here. Nu, this means mother, so it has a female radical, giving you a clue to the meaning. And then over here we have the character ma, which means horse, but the mother is ma, so it's the similar pronunciation, and it gives you a pronunciation clue. So while Chinese is definitely not phonetic in the way that Spanish is, for example, but there are some clues to meaning and pronunciation in the characters themselves, and so that's really helpful. Okay, now we're going to talk about stroke order. So in these characters, there are different strokes. So this ko, for example, is written like this: stroke 1, stroke 2, stroke 3. All right. So each pen movement or pencil movement or whatever is a stroke, and so there's a particular order to write strokes. Now you might be thinking to yourself, what does it matter what order I do it in, right? If I'm going to draw a box, I can draw a box like this, or I can draw a box like this, right? Well, no. Look, they actually look a little different. They have a similar shape, but you see how this over here looks different from that over there? So the way the order of the strokes actually does affect the feel and look of the character, and that's why it's important to learn the way they're supposed to be written. Eventually, most of the strokes order in even complex characters will feel natural to you, but let me go over the rules and you can learn them. So here we go. I'm going to grab my phone for notes. So rule number one, top to bottom, top to bottom. So here's a character, Li. I'm going to draw it, and you'll notice that the direction I went is top to bottom. All right, next we have, usually it's left to right, okay? So top to bottom, left to right. So I'm going to draw the same character now, but you'll notice when I get to the part where there's left and right, I do the left first. So you left, right, boom. Okay. So normally you're drawing left to right if there's a side-by-side thing happening. Another example here is the mun over here. I'm going to do the left part, and now I also did left to right in that part too. Okay. Is there symmetry in the character? If there's symmetry in the character, you do the center first. So here's a really common character, xiao, which means small. I'm going to do the center part, boom, and then these two little things right there. So you'll notice this character has symmetry. In that case, you do the center first and then the outside. All right, so we do horizontal before vertical. If there's strokes that like cross each other, first horizontal, then vertical, a little different from English. Watch, I'm going to draw a character that looks like the plus sign in English, but it's drawn differently. If you do a plus sign, you usually do this, I think, right? That's a plus sign. But in Chinese, that same thing is done horizontal, then vertical. That means 10, by the way, the number 10. Okay, so if there's an enclosure in the character, there's like a box, some sort of box, and then something in the middle of the box, you build the outside of the enclosure, and then you do the inside. Watch this. Here's my enclosure, and now I'm going to do the inside. Okay, so you might have noticed something there. I did the bottom of the enclosure last. So at first I did the outside, but I did not close it, and then I did the inside, and then I closed it. That's the next rule. The next rule is that you, same character here, that you build, when there's a frame, you do the bottom of the frame last. There we go. So that's the next rule. And then lastly, strokes that span a character, like one big stroke that goes whoosh, or whoosh, down through the whole character, usually are done last. Let me give you an example here. I feel like I missed one. Anyway, maybe there's not 8 after all. Oh, I see. Yeah, no, I didn't miss one. Just in my notes, I had a link there as number 1. Okay, so here we go. We're going to do this one. Okay, that's most of the character, and now there's one stroke that goes the whole way through it, and we're going to do that last. So those are the basic rules of stroke order. You will learn them as you go, as you scritter. And then one last comment about Skritter. Skritter is an awesome app. I'm a big fan. There's a subscription fee, per month fee. The cost depends on how many months you sign up for at one time. The more months, the cheaper. But here's the thing. It is definitely worth it to get the subscription and to do it like the app kind of unfolds. Like you do these cards and you do your do cards and stuff. You learn and then practice, learn and practice. If you're thinking about trying to like download all of the cards into your system and then study them all at once, during your free week, you can do that. But it's totally different because you'll be studying them all differently, like all at the same time. And so you really, it's just better to pay the money. It's not that expensive because invest in this season and then kind of do them as you go. Do your one list, learn them, do your practice, and it'll keep feeding them to you as you need to learn them. So little thought about Skritter. Go for it. You're awesome.